Welcome to tacosandgeeks.com. Justin and Sean here back with more movie reviews. And today we are reviewing Blue Beetle from DC Films. And as always, I give you a brief synopsis, or I should say DC Studios. As always, I give you a brief synopsis. So without further ado, here we go. Jaime Reyes suddenly finds himself in possession of an ancient relic of ancient biotechnology called the Scarab. When the Scarab chooses Jaime to be its symbiote host, he bestows with an incredible suit of armor that's capable of extraordinary, unpredictable powers, forever changing his destiny as he becomes the superhero Blue Beetle. Okay, whew. All right. So that is the synopsis. I'm gonna pass this to Sean first because I have a lot to talk about.
Well,
um, I think Sean liked it a little better than I did, but Sean, you could go first. Your thoughts.
um, okay, so to to give everybody just a synopsis, I thought the movie was entertaining. I didn't put to like because DC has been what's for lack of a better word, DC has been a little have
Lackluster.
down. Yeah,
Yeah.
lackluster with a lot of things. So I was just like, okay, since they're rebooting and they're starting over, and this is going to be like something extremely new with DC. I want to just give it a chance and say, you know what, if this is gonna be the end of it, let's hope they break it, they do something really good at the end. I wasn't disappointed with the movie because I was just like, okay, the movie looked fun. Like it looked like it was just gonna be. They didn't try to build it up to be this big like action adventure war. Like what they tried to
Yeah.
do with Black Adam. It wasn't gonna change the scope of the DCU. It was just gonna be a fun. It was gonna be a story. So that's how I went in looking at the movie, and for the most part, that's exactly what it was. I'm gonna break it down to the things I liked and the things that I didn't like. To get it out for the first thing, the things I didn't like, the opening sequence I think was lackluster. Like I felt like they just jumped into it. I felt like there was no the editing to get into the opening sequence was just like somebody was just like fuck it.
Yeah.
They filmed it, they did a quick edit, and then that was it. It's something I would do if I'm just trying to do something quick at a con just to put a video out. I didn't feel like they put enough into the opening sequence. Um, After that, I think it was fine. We got to meet the Reyes family. We got to see them from, like I will say this movie is it traditionally like really Latino. Like this is
Yeah.
and it was a good thing because it reminds me of my friends, my Latino friends, my Latin friends, my um girlfriends. When you go to their houses,
Exactly.
they treat you like family, like everything is family, and I think that was like one of the best aspects of the movie, like it was family. um I wasn't happy with Susan Sarandon as the villain. I felt like they just threw her in there, and I don't feel like it was her performance. I think the
Mm-mm.
way her character was written, it was they didn't put enough into her character. Like, I didn't feel like she was a threat. I felt like she was more annoying as a person than she was as a threat. It was like she could have been a side character threat, like somebody in the person
Pulling the
in the
strings.
shadows that pulling the strings and or that second in command annoying ass kisser that people have that are just like they do things to hinder the heroes from getting where they have to go. The actual person he fights, um I thought he was a decent like nemesis, but I didn't feel like fear or anything for him. I kind of felt like I felt bad for him from the get-go because it looked like even before, and I don't want to give any spoilers, even before when you get to towards the end, like I didn't feel like I didn't have any like feelings towards him like, yo, this is a true asshole.
Yeah.
You know, to give an example, even in Black Adam, because I want to keep it all DC. Even in Black Adam, the people who were the villains, like I was just like, yo, this person's irredeemable. He's a dick. Like you can kind of like sit down and like you have no feelings of remorse for him. Like
Hmm.
anything that happens to him, you're just like, yo, this shit is well deserved. In this one, I didn't feel that way. And I think that's where they dropped the ball for me on the villains. They didn't do I felt like they didn't do enough. And I'm not a avid reader of Blue Beetle. Like most of my knowledge of Blue Beetle was from Crisis, or even watching Young Justice when Jaime Reyes is introduced as the Blue Beetle in Young Justice.
Yeah.
So that's the majority of my knowledge of Blue Beetle. I don't know Blue Beetle's complete enemy list. So I'm not gonna get into it like, oh, this wasn't his enemy. You're not gonna get a comic book opinion of it from me because I don't know enough about him, and I don't want to do what most people do, read a Wikipedia page and
And
like
try to analysis it.
yeah, like it's just like I'm gonna keep this strictly to the movie. I don't know enough about it, but I don't think this is a proper villain for him. And um other than that, like it just felt like they didn't put enough into it to make me like believe in the villains. And that was where kind of the things I didn't like about it. Now the things I did love about it was George Lopez absolutely carried this
Stole the
movie.
show.
Um Most people I thought he would just be like this comic relief character throughout the whole thing. And surprising enough, like he not that he took anything from Jaime's character. He complimented everybody's character in there, and he played his ass off. And George Lopez don't get enough props for some of the
Of
for
his
some of his
work. Yeah.
acting. Yeah, some of his work. Like he was just really good. And I know some people be like, I think he was just funny at the right times. He was what
Serious
he
at the
was,
right times too.
yeah, and he, like he added something to it. Because one of my first things was saying, like, watching the previews, his family being involved, I was like, kind of, I was like, I hate when they have like family who don't have the really doesn't have any reason to be in here. They're involved in it. All of a sudden, they're these great heroes that do this. No, but he
It's so
proved
funny,
his.
not to cut you off. That's
Mhm.
actually one of my complaints when I get to it. Go ahead.
Yeah, like he proved his worth throughout the entire movie, and he was so Spanish in the movie
Yeah.
with his mannerisms and everything he did. He was just hilarious. And I, shout out to him for just being who he was throughout the entire movie,
Yeah.
like carrying as part of the movie. Um, the actor's name, and I don't want to mispronounce his name wrong. You might. How do you
I,
pronounce his name?
I that's why I'm not gonna I'm not gonna botch the name.
But yeah, and I do apologize. I don't want to say
Yeah.
like because it's like the name is married
It's
Manudel.
you
Okay,
can do Mary Duane.
yeah.
Yeah.
Look, Jaime Reyes was played excellent. Like that, his character. If it is true going forward, James Gunn is going to keep him as Blue Beetle. Then he has made an excellent choice because this kid really played the hell out of that character because the like I said, my only interaction with Blue Beetle was mostly like reading a few,
Mhm.
some things from basically reading Ted Cord in the Crisis series and like Young Justice, and he played that character to a T. I didn't see any difference, and I loved Blue Beetle in Young Justice, and I didn't see any difference in him and that character. He was just good as Blue Beetle. Man, he had it down pat. Period. Like he was a shining, not to take it away to say if George Lopez I felt carried the movie, he helped hold
Yeah.
that load up. I wasn't bored with him on scene.
No.
I didn't think he was boring. I'm sorry. I didn't think he was nah, he hadn't any action chops. It's hard to explain. He was just good throughout. And I will say most of the cast was casted well. They
Oh
were
yeah.
good
Oh, the
throughout.
cast was phenomenal.
Yeah, they were good
Really good.
throughout the whole movie. They had their quirks, but you're not gonna expect perfection. There's no movie where every cast member was so perfect. They had little things that you'd be like, oh, you can get that out of there. But this cast was casted well,
Mhm.
except for villains. I
Yeah.
will say that, except for the
Oh
villains.
well, the villains don't say it was cast well, just poorly written.
Yeah,
Like if they had better material to work with, and that's probably one of my gripes too when I talk about what I thought. But yeah, I think if they had better writing, because you got Susan freaking Sarandon,
yeah.
like
And,
come on,
to compare this to something, Sigourney Weaver in The Defenders for on the Netflix series was an excellent villain.
yeah,
Like, because I don't want to put it as to, oh, maybe Susan Sarandon was. Sigourney Weaver was excellent. And that's what I kind of expected from Susan Sarandon. Like, I expected, which that's what I'm saying. None of that is her fault. I expected
mm-mm.
her to be like this matriarch, this badass older woman is like, yo, I don't take no shit.
You
Like,
see signs of it, but
yeah,
it's just like they looks like they were afraid to go a little darker than what they wanted to go with. Because I mean, originally this was gonna be on Max. But
yeah,
I guess once they went to the theaters, they were just like maybe probably reshoots. They toned it down because there is elements of a dark movie in here, or at least a little bit of darkness in here. But you can tell that it's hammed up even by the musical choices. Because even when he's transforming into the Blue Beetle, if they had a darker soundtrack, that looked horrific. Like the way he was screaming and his family is like reacting, but they put this like kind of
yeah.
easy
And it's
tone type of music to make like to ease that tension.
and it kind of like when the family reacted to the first transformation, it wasn't like, most parents, if your son is going through, they'll try to grab their kid, like,
Yeah.
like, that's my baby dying up there, like, what is it doing to him? And then they were kind of like, and then even there's a point where like he disappears and the family didn't seem as bothered. They're like, oh, he'll be back.
Yeah.
Like, this is the first time this has happened. This is not like something, unless you're telling me this is something that happens every day. Like, he flew out a window. You should have been in deep panic. And they treat it like the phone. Like, why would you call the police? And then you're just like, like, we'll hope he'll be back. Like, yeah, it just didn't see that part didn't seem
Well,
realistic.
well, they
And
didn't trust the police as well too. So that because remember, George Lopez Rudy character was like, no, no, we ain't calling the police. We ain't calling the police. They're gonna
yeah,
because they're gonna take us for stealing the tech, and then
yeah,
we're all Mexican, so they're gonna just think we automatically stole it and things
yeah.
like that. So
Which kind of helped that point, but it was
yeah,
just like, it's still like, other than George Lopez, everybody else is kind of like, yeah, okay,
yeah.
like, he'll be back eventually, and it's just like, yo, no, it shouldn't. It shouldn't be like that. And like, that was, like I said, cast very good. George Lopez, excellent. Um, Everything in there was good. And even just to show you how George Lopez carries something, there's a point in the movie, and I hope this isn't a spoiler, where they find when they're in Ted Kord's old his old base of operations, and he has a complete knowledge of him, and then he breaks down, like, he said, Metropolis had Superman, like, what is it, Star City had
It has Flash. Oh no, he said Sandra said he has Flash.
yeah, so yeah, they have the Flash, like, and he was like, we had Ted Cord, like, he wasn't, like a flashy superhero, but they had knowledge of him, so they were paying homage to Ted Cord being the original Blue Beetle. And then
Yeah,
one thing that I did like about it was they're showing you how old, like, this was with Ted Cord, because all the technology in his cave was, you can tell, like, anybody from like the late 70s, 80s, and a little bit into the 90s, these were
yeah.
all his gadgets were like Commodore 64 keyboard,
The
screen,
Power Glove.
the Power Glove from Nintendo. Like, I mean, anybody who, like, people who are into nostalgia will see that, like, oh wow, like, everything looked like this, like, his entire cave. He was a hero from like the 80s, and like begin like first two, yeah, like
Mhm.
from 90 to about 93. Because in 93 we had a lot of technology was way better. Like,
Yeah.
but he really, they really stepped it up in that aspect. Like, set design was done great. And I mean, I don't want to take it all. I want to let Justin get to where he had it, but I can tell you, Justin huffed and puffed through a lot of parts of this
Oh yeah.
where I didn't, where I was just like, I thought it was what it was. And then even when he said this movie was supposed to be on HBO Max, then it made more sense. And I enjoyed the movie more, because you can tell, like, if this was a movie that was going on HBO Max, they really didn't do much more to make it more of a theatrical movie. They
Mm-hmm.
just put it out exactly the way it was. And if this was supposed to go on Max, then they should have left it to go on Max. They shouldn't try to. I mean, in my opinion, if this is the end of the DCEU as we know it, moving more away from
Well, we have Aquaman.
yeah, I mean, okay, Aquaman I expect to be really good, but if you're moving away from Zack Snyder's vision and we're moving away from something else, and this was supposed to go into his vision, and I'm pretty sure if this was Zack Snyder's vision, this wouldn't have been as campy and family oriented. There would have been
No.
a lot of darker sequences in this
Mm.
movie. But if you were moving away from that and just connecting it to the DCEU and putting it on Max, you should have left it there. It's the same way where I kind of regret, like, after hearing the rumors, like, you killed Batgirl, and I heard it was excellent, and that was supposed to go on Max. Like, you should, these are the shows that should have come out, and possibly this is where Gunn should bring them in.
Yeah,
So
it
that's
should
my
like put them straight to Max, and it would have been a nice jumping point. I think you would have got more Max subscribers as well.
yeah.
But
This movie would have definitely brought in more Max subscribers because it is that kind of fun. Like if you can sit at home with the kids, because we were actually there with a lot of families, and
yeah,
there were a lot of Latin families there, and like the family particularly next to us, the little girl enjoyed the hell out of
hell of
it.
it.
Like
Yeah, she
we're
did.
like she was excited. So I really think like if that would have been like the turning point for it with
Yeah,
Max.
and so to be kind of the devil's advocate here, um, my likes are similar to Sean, so I won't touch too much on it. Of course, the representation, which everybody's been hanging up on, yes, it is unapologetic Latino. You're absolutely gonna love it. It does a great representation of the culture, but at the same time, when Sean was talking about the family, me personally, I felt like it was too much of the family in the movie. I felt like it took too much from Jaime. I mean, granted, that is the whole story, but I felt like the hero at some times should have been it's an origin story, but the hero should have had at least a little bit more of the hero kind of trials. But this is a paint by numbers origin story. This is nothing really new under the sun. I mean, you can watch this film and you're gonna be thinking, and I couldn't help, and this is probably my fault too, because I watched so much freaking superhero material. But I'm watching this movie and I literally see scenes from other superhero movies. There's scenes that take from Iron Man. There's scenes that take from Black Panther. There's scenes that take from Spider Man. Scenes that took from other DC properties. And I was just like, okay, so we just took some of these great aspects of these movies, put it in a blender. I also felt that the family at times, especially Nana was cool, but there's scenes in here I was just like, you took me
And it
out of
did too
it.
much.
Yeah,
And
it
it did
was
too
too
much
too much.
sometimes.
Like George Lopez was great because they knew how to balance him. The rest of the family wasn't as balanced as it. Like the sister character, she was there, but at some point, like, was she really needed? We also need to talk about Cord's daughter, who's the one who gave her the gave Hami the biotech. And as far as Sean was saying, the villains were so underwritten, underdeveloped. There were no stakes. I've seen reviews where people like, "Oh, there's some stakes in here." I was like, "What stakes?" I didn't even appreciate the fact that they at the end tried to make it put everything out there. Like, "Oh, here's this particular villain's backstory. Feel for him." Like it was just like, "Here's
I
everything
felt for
right
him
now."
throughout the whole movie. Like it's not like I hated him. I felt for him throughout the whole movie. So when you get to the end, I was just like, my feelings were right. Like I I wasn't mad at him at all. Like you could tell he was a sad character.
And Susan Sarandon, just a waste. They wasted her because like the villain is your paint by numbers rich. I need power. I want to dominate. This is
She's
like you
been
get a
overlooked her
glimpse of
entire
her.
life.
Mhm.
She was overlooked her entire life. She was
But yeah,
overlooked for the company. So this is her revenge to prove like I belonged.
yeah, you get a glimpse of that, but it's not really explored, which doesn't really make you like kind of connect with the villains here, which is actually surprising because usually DC is known for having stellar villains and in their films, but this one was just like it felt like it could have just been a something like Marvel, not to bring up Marvel, but like what they did with Werewolf by Night. It just felt like it could have just been an HBO Max, or excuse me, Max presentation and of Blue Beetle, and just put it like a nice hour presentation on Max and get you a nice introduction. Then we can include them in Gunn's universe. But the acting was great. Acting was great. Cast, like Sean said, cast is spectacular. I love the use of the practical suits.
Yeah.
CGI was great as well, except for that one particular bubblegum CGI that looked terrible at the
No,
yeah.
but Marvel needs to take notice on how DC did the CGI, because
Yeah.
Blue Beetle using his weapons
Oh yeah, that was good.
was off the hook. Like, damn, like his practical weapons, even where he shoots like the staples to hold people, that looked beautiful. Like his sonic
Mhm.
cannons, his sword. Yo, I thought I was watching the cartoon at one point. I was like, damn, this looks good.
Yeah,
Like,
especially with the constructs that he was doing with the swords, the way he was
yeah,
like. Oh, yeah, and speaking of action, action was good. Wasn't as
yeah,
much as I thought it would be, but action for what it was, it had a healthy amount of action as well, which was pretty damn good for an origin story. You're not gonna get you're not gonna get like a Man of Steel type of balls to the wall. I know, but the action is really self-contained, and it's when there's action, there's a reason for the action. It's not just
yeah.
action for the sake of it. I mean, you might some might argue like the ending fight is like, oh, your typical superhero villain versus hero type of thing. But yeah, but I mean, we get that in every single superhero property where you got to face the villain. So yes, you're gonna get that big CGI fight, but it's very
It
clean
looked
because
good.
it's a mix of practical effects and CGI. There's points where obviously besides the constructs of that Blue Beetle forms, you can't really tell which is practical, what's use of CGI, because the suits are actually, most of the suits is practical effects. If you saw like release footage when they were filming that, they actually made a suit for him, which is pretty good. But I mean,
Yep.
overall, it's an enjoyable film. But if you have such high expectations, like this is the next big DC property, I will say lower it. It's good. I will recommend you to take your family to see it. I mean, obviously, as Sean said, we were with a whole bunch of families of all cultures, and everybody was really digging it, especially the kids. You know, seeing kids seeing themselves represented. I guess they were really cheering
It was
themselves.
enjoyable because they
It's
were just
yeah,
smiling and
yeah,
having a good time. Like, they understood. Like, to watch a kid go like, this is kind of how my family acts, and seeing it
yeah.
on screen was really good to watch.
Yeah. I mean, for that, yes. But as far as story goes, it wasn't for me that good. Villain wise was terrible. The post credit was cool, but
Yes.
now the question is Gunn gonna pick it up? That's the thing. So we know the characters are coming back, but we don't know if the story is coming back. So that's the thing. That's the trick. The actors are coming back, but is the story coming along with it? Because if that's the case, then that is the true starting point of this new James Gunn universe. But he said Superman Legacy. So question
And,
is how that's gonna work.
and I
So
hope he does. I really
yeah.
hope he does, because
Well,
if he gets rid of it, then this movie was a waste, and it just should have
yeah.
really been on HBO
HBO
Max.
Max.
He continues with this, because don't throw this away. And I think that's one of the problems I have with the DCEU. Don't take our review of this as this is such a trash movie. This
No.
movie did well enough for me to say this should be a prequel starting point for the new DCEU,
Yeah.
because it works. Like, that family works, the actors work, the Blue Beetle works, and you should use this as like a base to say this and keep the story and keep it going. And you can, it's kind of what I've said about Marvel. You can have your B tier characters and still have a good story,
Mm-hmm.
but you can have your main characters and have a great story. And then you can mix them all together and it makes a great universe. This has the potential to start the universe off on a really good foot and
It's
keep it going.
it's not a bad movie. Like I said, my problems with the film were definitely the writing. I felt like the family was way too much at times. Like they got, to me personally, a little bit too much screen time. We should have focused a little bit more on Jaime's hero journey, but his journey is with his family. So I mean, I get why they did it. So, but at the same, if they continue on, I would like to see less of the family, more of him venturing out and learning more about the actual alien that's with him, and developing more of the cord lore as well. But like I said, it's a pretty good, entertaining flick. I'm gonna give this 3.5 stars. Pretty good. The villains were a letdown. Ending was good. Acting was great. George Lopez steals the fucking show. But yeah, I'll give this a 3.5 stars. It's kind of your paint by numbers superhero origin story, but you're still going to enjoy the approach to it, and of course the representation is excellent as well. So go see with your family. Just lower your expectations if you're expecting this to be DC's next big thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna give it the same thing. I would have probably pushed it to 4 stars if the villains were more developed. I would have probably said, this is good enough. But it, like I said, 3.5 stars, no hate towards it, because I'm more of a Marvel, I'm more into Marvel than I am the DC, even though my favorite characters are DC heroes. Um, but I'm more into Marvel storyline, and but this, I've always had hope for DC because I've always wanted, in the end, as time went on, I always felt like the superhero genre should end
Mm,
with Marvel versus DC. They
yeah,
should do a live action, and that live action I wanted to contain all the DCEU actors from Henry Cavill to Gal Gadot, and all the Marvel characters with
Robert Downey, all of them.
Robert Downey, everybody. I wanted them to battle it out, just like what we read in the comic books, and I actually wanted them to do the classic, because how that comic book went on was they let the fans vote to who should win
Mhm.
each individual battle. And I was hoping we'd get something like that. But with all these changes and everything else, and like I said, even the like, listen, right now, let's be honest, there's terrible writing for both studios right
Yeah,
now. They're in a turmoil of terrible writing, and it's causing superhero fatigue. So they need to kind of get it together. And I hope, and the rumors and everything out there is that they're deciding to revamp it. They're going back to the drawing board for both studios.
yeah.
Gun with DC, and Marvel with the formats on Disney Plus and everything. I'm hoping that they do this, because if not, we're looking at uh we're looking at the downfall of this in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean that would be honestly the storybook ending that I think this superhero genre of films needs, is that big Marvel versus DC crossover. I mean, we have James Gunn at the helm. He's cool with Kevin Feige. You never know, and
Yeah,
especially the way the economics in Hollywood is not really making as much big billions as, I mean, Barbie just did it, but it's not as consistent. When's the last superhero movie that really went a bill? Like in a
but maybe
while.
into the Spider Verse,
Oh
maybe.
yeah, I mean, like from the MCU, Thor didn't. Black Panther 2 didn't. Um, Doctor Strange didn't. It got to
Mhm.
800, but didn't get a bill. So I mean, it's like they need something. Both studios need that major hit, especially as the amount of money they're paying for. They're not, a lot of them are not even making enough money back or breaking even, which is shocking.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, it's a revamp is definitely needed. But we're gonna wrap this up. Blue Beetle, fun. I would say fun but flawed, but you're gonna get some entertainment out of it. And this is Justin and Sean saying later days. We'll catch you on the next review. Peace. Blue Beetle gets 3.5
Later.
stars.